At 78, I've learned something profound that I wish I'd understood decades earlier. I've watched friends with millions in their bank accounts spiral into depression and isolation, while others with modest savings live with joy, purpose, and deep fulfillment well into their 80s and beyond. The difference wasn't in their financial portfolios, it was in what they chose to value and nurture throughout their lives. When Mary turned 75, she had everything society told her to acquire: a paid-off home, a healthy retirement account, and expensive possessions. But sitting alone in her perfect house, surrounded by things that couldn't speak back to her, she confessed to me through tears, "I focused on the wrong treasures. Now it's too late." Her words haunted me because I realized how many of us make the same devastating mistake. In this video, I'm going to reveal the 5 true treasures of old age that matter far more than money, treasures that determine whether your final decades will be your most meaningful or your most regretted. I'll share what I've witnessed in the lives of hundreds of elders I've known, interviewed, and counseled over the past 25 years, including shocking contrasts between those who focus solely on financial security and those who balance material needs with these deeper riches. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly which investments actually pay the highest dividends after 70, and more importantly, how to start building these treasures now, regardless of your current age. Because the truth is, the foundation for a rich old age isn't laid in your 60s. It's built decade by decade through intentional choices that many people never realize they should be making. Stay with me until the end, because the final treasure I'll share is one that less than 10% of seniors actively cultivate, yet it's been shown to add not just years to life, but profound meaning to those years. This overlooked treasure is something anyone can develop, regardless of health, wealth, or past choices, but it requires a fundamental shift in thinking that most people never make. And once you understand it, your perspective on aging will be forever changed in the most liberating way possible. Now, let's explore the true treasures that determine quality of life after 70, starting with something that money simply cannot buy, no matter how wealthy you become. The first treasure that matters more than money in old age is having genuine connections that go beyond obligation or convenience. I'm not talking about casual acquaintances or even family members who visit out of duty. I'm talking about relationships where you're truly known, valued, and actively chosen. Think about James and Robert, both 82 years old. James spent his career climbing the corporate ladder, often missing family events for work. He invested brilliantly for retirement and has over $3 million in assets. Robert earned a modest teacher's salary, lived simply, and prioritized building deep friendships and staying involved in his community. Today, James lives in an upscale retirement community where he has everything he needs materially. But when I visited him last year, he made a heartbreaking confession. "I get weekly calls from my children, but I can tell it's from obligation. They don't really know me. And the people here are pleasant, but after 2 years, not one person has become a true friend." Despite his financial success, his days are filled with hollow interactions that never scratch beneath the surface. Robert, meanwhile, lives in a simple home worth a fraction of James's condo. But 3 times a week, his former students, now in their 50s, come by to play chess, discuss books, or just share a meal. His neighbors check in daily, not because they're paid to, but because they genuinely enjoy his company. When he had surgery last year, 17 different people organized a rotation to help with his recovery. What's the difference? Robert invested in people when it wasn't convenient. He remembered birthdays, showed up when others were struggling, and took genuine interest in lives different from his own. James invested in accounts. Both got exactly the returns they earned. Dr. Laura Carstensen from Stanford Center on Longevity puts it bluntly: the data is clear, meaningful social connections are as crucial to longevity as not smoking. But the key word is meaningful. Studies show that superficial interactions actually increase stress hormones in older adults, while deep connections reduce them. Here's what's fascinating: the connections that sustain us in old age aren't always the ones we expect. Sometimes it's not the children you raised, but the neighbor whose garden you admired for years, or the book club members you've debated with monthly for a decade. It's the relationships where you've shared vulnerability, growth, and consistent presence. So ask yourself, are you cultivating connections based on genuine interest and shared values or convenience and obligation? Because after 70, that distinction becomes painfully clear in ways that no amount of money can remedy. The second treasure that surpasses wealth in value after 70 is something most people never appreciate until it begins to fade: physical capacity and the independence it provides. I'm not talking about looking youthful or having athletic prowess. I'm talking about the fundamental ability to care for yourself, move without pain, and participate in life without constant limitation. Consider two women I've known for years, Patricia and Eleanor, both 75. Patricia prioritized her career in finance, working 70-hour weeks, eating at her desk, and postponing exercise until retirement. She accumulated impressive wealth, multiple properties, and investments worth over $4 million. Eleanor earned much less as a nurse, but throughout her life, she walked daily, maintained a consistent yoga practice, and prioritized sleep and nutrition even during her busiest years. Today, Patricia can afford luxury care, but she can't bend to tie her own shoes. She can't garden, dance at her grandchildren's weddings, or even take a shower without assistance. Her world has shrunk to the few activities she can manage while navigating chronic pain and limited mobility. When I visited her recently, she pointed to her expensive art collection and said, "I'd trade every piece on these walls just to walk around the block without my walker." Eleanor, meanwhile, lives on a modest pension. Her home is simple, and she carefully budgets for expenses. But at 75, she still hikes with her hiking group, swims 3 times weekly, and recently took her grandchildren camping. When faced with health challenges, and everyone faces them eventually, her physical reserves have allowed her to recover where others her age might not. Dr. Maria Fiadaron Singh, a geriatrician at the University of Sydney who specializes in exercise physiology for older adults, explains, physical capacity is the foundation upon which all other aspects of independent aging rest. Without it, even unlimited financial resources cannot purchase the freedom to live on your own terms. What's most surprising is that this treasure isn't determined by genetics nearly as much as we think. Research from the MacArthur Study of Successful Aging shows that only about 30% of physical function in old age is attributable to genetics. The rest comes from cumulative lifestyle choices. Small, consistent investments in movement, strength, and flexibility yield compound returns just as reliably as financial investments. The painful irony I've witnessed repeatedly is people sacrificing their physical health to accumulate wealth, only to spend that wealth trying to recover the health they lost. By 70, this equation becomes devastatingly clear, but by then, some losses cannot be recouped at any price. If you're still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 2 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Now, let's move forward to the third treasure that matters more than money after 70. The third treasure that proves invaluable after 70 is mental adaptability, the ability to learn, change your mind, and embrace new realities without becoming rigid or bitter. This quality determines whether aging becomes a series of losses to resist or natural evolution to navigate with grace. I want to tell you about two men, both former executives, who faced similar circumstances but experienced radically different outcomes. Thomas and William, both 77, lost their wives within a year of each other. Both had successful careers and comparable financial resources. But their responses to this major life transition revealed a stark contrast in mental adaptability. Thomas had always been known for his strong opinions and set ways. Throughout his career, he prided himself on being the expert who didn't need new information. After his wife's passing, he rejected suggestions to learn cooking skills, join grief groups, or develop new routines. He insisted things should continue as they always had, with the same weekly schedule, the same restaurants they had frequented together, the same rigid expectations. Within 2 years, Thomas had become increasingly isolated and resentful. His children visited less often, finding his inflexibility exhausting. His health declined as he ate poorly and refused to adapt his lifestyle. Despite his financial comfort, his world grew smaller and darker. William, however, approached his loss differently. Though devastated, he recognized that his life required new skills and perspectives. He took cooking classes, something he'd never considered before. He joined a tech group for seniors and learned to use video calling to connect with grandchildren. When his arthritis made golf difficult, he didn't abandon activity. He took up swimming and found a new community there. Today, William still carries grief, but he's created a meaningful life with new friendships, skills, and perspectives. Thomas, despite having more money, lives in a prison of resistance, fighting changes he cannot control. Neuropsychologist Dr. Elkanon Goldberg explains this phenomenon. The aging brain remains remarkably plastic, but this potential must be actively engaged. Those who approach late life with cognitive flexibility build greater neural reserves that protect against decline and enhance problem-solving capacity. What's fascinating is that mental adaptability isn't necessarily linked to formal education or career success. I've known people with limited schooling who possess remarkable flexibility of thought and highly educated professionals who become cognitively rigid. The difference isn't credentials, it's the habitual practice of questioning assumptions, including your own. Throughout life, we gather beliefs about who we are, what matters, and how things should be. By 70, these beliefs have either hardened into confining certainties or remained flexible enough to accommodate life's inevitable changes. And no amount of money can purchase the willingness to grow, adapt, and remain curious about a changing world. The fourth treasure that becomes extraordinarily valuable after 70 is a healthy relationship with time, one that transcends the urgency, scarcity, and productivity obsession that dominates earlier decades. This transformation in how we experience time doesn't happen automatically with age. It's cultivated through intention and practice. I've observed this contrast powerfully in two women who live in the same retirement community, Margaret and Helen, both 80 years old. Both have adequate financial resources, similar health statuses, and the same amount of time left in their lives, though neither knows exactly how much, of course. Margaret wakes each day with a sense of anxious urgency. Her calendar is packed with appointments, committees, and activities. She rushes through conversations, frequently checking her watch, perpetually worried about being late or wasting time. "I need to make the most of every minute," she often says. While admirable in theory, this approach has a shadow side. She's never fully present, always mentally leaning into the next obligation, treating time as an enemy she's fighting to outrun. Helen, by contrast, moves through her days with remarkable presence. She's no less engaged. She volunteers, maintains close friendships, and pursues interests, but she's shed the tyranny of hurry. When you speak with her, she listens with her full attention, unhurried and unworried about what comes next. She's developed what philosophers call chronos-kairos balance, the ability to honor scheduled time while remaining open to meaningful moments that can't be planned. The difference is evident in how they experience identical circumstances. When community bus broke down during an outing, stranding residents for 3 hours, Margaret was beside herself, pacing, complaining, checking her watch repeatedly, her blood pressure visibly rising with each delayed minute. Helen sat calmly in the shade, struck up a conversation with another resident she hadn't known well, and later described the delay as an unexpected gift that allowed for a connection that might never have happened otherwise. Dr. Laura Carstensen's research on socio-emotional selectivity theory explains this phenomenon. As people perceive time as more limited, they tend to shift from future-oriented goals aimed at optimization to present-oriented goals aimed at emotional meaning. But this shift doesn't occur automatically. It requires conscious redefinition of what constitutes value in relation to time. What's most striking is how this relationship with time affects everything else, from stress levels and cognitive function to the depth of relationships and ability to find joy in ordinary experiences. Those who remain captured by time urgency after 70 often experience their final decades as a series of frustrations. Those who transform their relationship with time discover an expansiveness that no amount of money can purchase. The question isn't how much time you have left. No one knows that. The question is, are you experiencing time as a dwindling resource to be hoarded or as a present reality to be fully inhabited? Because after 70, this distinction shapes nearly every aspect of life experience. If you're still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 4 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Now let's move to our 5th and final treasure, perhaps the most powerful yet most overlooked resource in later life. The final treasure that proves invaluable after 70 is something that sounds deceptively simple: the capacity for awe and wonder. This isn't about naive positivity or denying life's hardships. It's about maintaining the ability to be moved, touched, and astonished by existence itself, even as you face the challenges and losses that come with aging. I want to tell you about 2 widowers I came to know well in their final years. Charles and David, both in their mid-80s, both dealing with similar health challenges, including heart conditions and arthritis. Charles had amassed considerable wealth as a real estate developer. David had worked as a high school science teacher and lived modestly on his pension. Charles viewed his physical limitations as insults, his medical appointments as inconveniences, and his daily life as a series of problems to be managed. When I visited him in his luxury apartment, he would catalog his complaints about his health, the weather, the news, the service in the building. Despite having every comfort money could buy, his world had become a joyless inventory of grievances. David lived in a small apartment with a tiny balcony where he kept several bird feeders. During one visit, our conversation was interrupted when a cardinal landed nearby. David stopped mid-sentence, his face transforming with delight. "Look at that red. Isn't that something?" he whispered. For several minutes, we simply watched the bird. Later, he showed me a journal where he recorded moments that filled him with wonder: a particularly vivid sunset, the pattern of rain on his window, a piece of music that moved him to tears. What struck me wasn't that David denied his difficulties. He spoke candidly about pain, loss, and fear, but that these challenges hadn't extinguished his capacity to be awestruck by beauty. He once told me, "Every morning, I remind myself that today I might see something I've never seen before, even if I never leave this apartment." Psychologist Dr. Dacher Keltner, who studies all across the lifespan, explains the experience of awe, the perception of vastness, and the need for accommodation actually increases in potential as we age, particularly as we face our own mortality. It can transform how we experience limitations and suffering. Research from the University of California, Berkeley shows that regular experiences of or reduce inflammation markers, lower stress hormones, and increase immune function. But beyond these physical benefits, they fundamentally alter our perception of time, creating what researchers call temporal abundance, the sense that time is expanded and available rather than scarce and depleted. What's most powerful about this treasure is that it's equally available regardless of financial status. The wealthiest person can become awe-blind, while someone with limited means can cultivate extraordinary sensitivity to wonder. The difference isn't circumstance, it's attention and practice. So many aging adults focus their energy on what they're losing: mobility, certain abilities, loved ones, that they gradually lose access to this fundamental human capacity for astonishment. Yet those who intentionally cultivate wonder find that it creates resilience unlike anything money can buy. Now that we've explored these 5 treasures, meaningful connections that transcend obligation, physical capacity, and the freedom it provides, mental adaptability, and continued learning, a relationship with time that transcends urgency, and the capacity for awe and wonder, I want you to consider where you're investing your resources right now. Take a moment to reflect honestly. Are you balancing financial planning with intentional investment in these deeper dimensions of wealth? Because here's what I've learned from watching hundreds of people navigate their 70s, 80s, and beyond. Financial security creates a floor beneath which you don't want to fall. But these 5 treasures determine the ceiling of possibility for your experience. I've seen people with modest means who live with extraordinary richness because they've cultivated these non-financial treasures throughout their lives. And I've seen wealthy individuals trapped in miserable isolation, physical limitation, mental rigidity, time scarcity, and wonder blindness that no amount of money could alleviate. The tragedy isn't having limited financial resources in old age, though that certainly creates real challenges. The deeper tragedy is reaching your final decades with a healthy bank account but an impoverished inner and relational life. Because by then, certain deficits become very difficult to address. This doesn't mean financial planning isn't important. It absolutely is. Economic security provides options and reduces stress. But financial planning without parallel investment in these 5 treasures is like building a beautiful house with no furniture, warmth, or life inside it. The structure matters, but it's not sufficient for a life worth living. What gives me hope is that it's never too late to begin cultivating these treasures, regardless of your age, health status, or financial situation. Even small investments, reaching out to deepen one relationship, committing to regular movement your body can manage, challenging one rigid belief, practicing presence for 5 minutes daily, or intentionally noticing one moment of beauty, can begin shifting your trajectory toward a richer experience. And if you're younger, watching this video to understand what might lie ahead, you have a precious opportunity to build these treasures alongside your financial planning, creating compound interest in dimensions of wealth that will matter profoundly when the statements and portfolios have served their purpose. Because at the end of a long life, what constitutes true wealth isn't what you managed to keep, but who you became, who you loved, how you moved through the world, how you experienced time, and what continued to astonish you, right up until your final moments. Thank you for joining us today. We'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below and share one thing you learned today and how you plan to use it in your life. Your thoughts are important to us, so don't hesitate to share them. Reading your comments gives us great motivation and encouragement. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Next week, we'll be exploring another dimension of aging, that few people talk about, how to navigate relationships that need to change as you enter new life stages. Thanks for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video.